Well, if you guys are joining us, my name is Kia Stevens of the Father Swap blog, where we purpose to provide a source of encouragement, healing, and practical wisdom for women who grew up without the love and affirmation of their biological dads, whether that be by way of divorce, abandonment, abuse, incarceration, addictions, or physical presence but emotional absence. We are here to be a resource for you, and I'm so glad that you are joining us for our second live stream Google Hangout on the subject of raising kids without fathers. We have none other than Lisa Appelo of lisaappelo.com, and I'm really excited to have her featured on the Hangout tonight. I met Lisa at She Speaks, which is a conference for bloggers, authors, and writers. And while there, we had an opportunity to hear a little bit about her story, and then also see where there's some commonalities in the content that we create. So I'm really excited to be talking with her tonight. Now, I do want to say that if you are watching, then I'm going to assume that you have some sort of connection to raising kids without fathers. Either you grew up without your father, or you are a single mom, or you know a single mom, you are friends with a single mom, and this subject matter interests you. So we want this to be a dialogue where you can also join in the conversation. So you can email me at info@fatherswap.com, or you can tweet a question at fatherswap, or you can comment in the chat box. I'd love to hear from you. I know Lisa would love to hear from you as well. So with that said, let's dive in. I want to just give you a little bit of a bio about Lisa. She is a single mom of 7. Yes, that she birthed out of her body. So that's pretty serious. That alone is enough. That qualifies her to speak to us today. She is an author. She is a blogger, and I love this. This is a quote that she says on her blog. Let's see, can I find it? She says she shares soul deep encouragement for the adventure of faith. And I just love that, because those of you who know me, you know I do not like skimming on the surface. And if you're a single mom, you don't need the surface. You need to go deep, and you need to go deep right now. So I know Lisa is going to do that for us, y'all. Her kids range in age from 9 to 25. So she has a wealth of knowledge to share with us, and can't wait to feast upon it. I also want to just say that in preparing for this, I was thinking about a blog post that I wrote about a year ago, and I wrote it as a tribute to my mother, because I am the product of a single parent household. And the title, it's like it's the second most popular post, which is surprising to me. The title is for Mothers Raising Kids Without Fathers. And the opening line says, no little girl dreams about becoming a single mom. Yeah. It just happens. And that is the segue for Lisa, because it just happened for her. 5 years ago, her world was turned upside down. So with that said, Lisa, would you just bring us up to date, fill us in? What happened 5 years ago?
Well, Kia, I'm glad to be here with you tonight. It's thank you very much. 5 years ago, life was really good. Life was pretty much as good as I could have ever hoped it. It wasn't perfect. Obviously, clearly, there's no marriage that's perfect. There's no parenting scenario that's perfect. But it was really, we were happy. We were in a very good place. And we had at that point a 4-year, our youngest was 4, our oldest was 19. We had just launched our oldest into college. So we I thought, we've got this parenting thing down. Our marriage was in a very good place. My husband was super happy with his job. And he had said he had a trip to the Keys, and he had said, "I want you to go with me to the Keys." And I hardly ever went away with him. I mean, you have to kind of stop the world to try to, leave when you have 7 kids. So, and we didn't have anybody who really could take care of our kids. So I had said, I don't think I'm going to be able to go. And he, like, that was the night before he was going to leave for this business trip. And he said, I knew you would say that. And I lay there in the bed thinking, your husband just wants you to go on this trip with him. Just go. And
Mhm.
so I did. I kind of just pushed pause on life and I went with him on this business trip. And we had 3 days together, which was just wonderful, to talk on the way down and talk on the way back. And he was perfectly fine. We got home and uh, that night we were actually on the heels of going on another trip with our whole family, and so I had a big day the next day to get us all washed and packed and all that. And I said, I'm headed to bed, and he said, okay, I'll be there, in a few minutes. I'm doing some stuff for my mom. And I said good night. And like 100 other nights, it was so routine. Well, about somewhere probably about 4 in the morning, the next morning, I woke up to the sound of what I thought was a nightmare. And I kind of pushed him and said, kind of, just woke him up and said, it's just a nightmare. You're okay. And I realized as I was waking up that this was not nightmare breathing, that this was something completely different. And I flipped on the overhead light and I could see right away that that there was something really wrong. And he was in the I really don't know, Kia, if he was at all conscious at that point or if he had already left us. But within the space of an hour, we performed CPR on him. We called 911. Medics came. They took him to the hospital, but they could never revive him. And so, in the space of, going to bed that night and waking up the next morning, life just shattered into a million pieces. And I, became a widow and a single mom to 7 kids, and and was dealing with grief. So,
Wow. Okay, so take me to the day that. How do you tell your children? I'm saying how did you tell your children?
well, when we had done CPR, and I thought, okay, he's gonna be okay. The medics are here. He's gonna be so mad when he wakes up and finds out that he's in the hospital. And so I went to the hospital by myself. And when I came back, all the kids were at home, and that was the hardest thing I had to do. And just as the way it pretty much worked, I was able to pretty much tell each one of them. Now, my oldest son was actually off at camp. He was a camp counselor that summer, and he had just left like 2 weeks before. And so we had to try to find him. We actually had somebody who was close by and drove over to the camp and got him. He phoned in, and so I had to tell him on the phone. But everybody, all the other kids, I just told them that their dad had passed away, and there's no way to prepare for anything like that. The words you say in those moments, the things that you do, your reaction, all of that is something there's no way you can plan what your reaction is going to be in those crises, those tragedies. But we came together as a family. I would say within like 10 minutes of being home, my front door started opening and friends had heard. I had made one phone call to a friend to tell her that Dan was in the hospital and to please pray. And that morning, my front door opened and friends came in. My kids' friends came in, which was huge for my kids' friends to come in and be with them. Um, and they just ministered to us. They just loved on us and hugged us and cried with us and helped us try to process, what was going on.
And did you ever feel like Dan was going to suddenly come back through the door and you were going to jump back into your old life and everything's going to be perfect again, and or not perfect, but
Yeah.
back to the way it was.
That is that's part of grief. And I think that's a very common feeling, to think that, like to reach for your phone to call him, or to think that he's going to call, or think that he's just on an extended business trip and he's going to come home any minute. And that's just, to me, that's a soft landing that God gives us to acclimate to the new chapter that we are going to have to walk out. But yeah, I think I kept his briefcase right where he had left it the night before for about a year. I don't think I moved it.
Um,
That's just, you don't want to take away those remembrances and the way life was. It's just hard to move into that next chapter without him.
sure. And in keeping with the question about grief and I guess the disbelief or not wanting to accept reality, I want to ask you about anger. Were you ever mad? Like, Dan, you left me here with all these kids, come on. Or, angry with God too.
Yeah.
Like, God, I've been serving you. How could you allow this?
I did not. And I actually feel like that was just grace, God's grace to me. I think I had so much on my plate and so much to manage. I'm very grateful that I didn't have to process grief, process anger as part of the grief. I know friends that have had that. And I never asked, like, why did this happen? I never asked that of God, but I have a lot of times asked him, what now? Like, what now? How are you going to work all this out? But no, I didn't ever feel angry. And I didn't feel angry at Dan because he had a heart attack and there was something underlying, that had we known, it probably could have been treated, but we didn't know. And, you know, so there's no way, I have on occasions in those moments of frustration looked at his picture and said, you have it so easy. You're like, you're up there in heaven and I am down here dealing with all of this, but I've not been angry.
Mm-hmm. Wow. But with such grace, though. Oh, my goodness, Lisa. So let me ask you about your kids. And then we're going to get into some more single mom stuff, but I just can't leave this grief place for a spell. Just walking through it with your kids, and has there been incremental grief where it's like the birthday and it's like, oh, that means dad's not here for my birthday, or just as they're growing and experiencing milestones, realizing dad's not here. What has that been like?
Well, grief is part of single parenting. I mean, no matter how you got to be a single parent, there's an element of grief. There's either a marriage that has died, and there's grief. Your child, our kids are always going to grieve that there's not that marriage, that there's not that mom and that dad in the home. Or whether there never was a dad on the scene, there's going to be, that child's going to grieve that they don't have that dad in their life. So, yes, it's not it's a grief is always not, we're 5 years into it. I think grief is something you always have with you. It manifests differently as you go on. Like in the beginning, it consumes your thoughts, your emotions, your energy.
Mm.
It consumes your whole, it is all you can do to move through that. As you process that grief in a healthy way, then it's still part of your life, and there's still, valleys that you go into, and days of despair, or even weeks of despair or sadness, or really intensely missing. And the kids, I think even for my younger kids, they will grow into their grief, because my youngest was 4 when her dad died.
Wow.
My little boy was 6. So they did grieve him. I mean, my 6-year-old would cry himself to sleep every night for probably the first year and a half. But we still have conversations. We still talk about it. They each stage they get to, they grieve in a whole new way. Like, oh, I would have had a dad doing this, or So it's definitely something that they'll always have to process.
Sure. And when they say that, what do you say in response to them saying, well, do they say it's not fair? And I know you're talking about them and not you, but
Yeah.
I know that some people that tune in or watch the recording may not be the single parent, but they might be the child who is being raised in this home that does not have a father. So what do you say?
They have said it's not fair. It's one of my children especially has said, and you know, you can't get frustrated no matter how many times they ask that question. I have had to tell myself as a mom, do not get frustrated with it. Like, answer it every single time. Meet that need every single time. And I've just asked God to, like, don't let me get impatient with that question no matter how many times she asks it. But this is my youngest daughter, has asked a lot or said, it's not fair. And why did he have to? And why did God take him? And we just, as a parent, we need to make sure that we understand why bad things happen. Why does God allow bad things to happen? That is a huge question, and we need to understand the biblical answer for that, and then be able to lead our kids in that. And so I'll just explain to them, just because we're a Christian, honey, we're not immune to pain. We're not immune to the effects of sin, and we're all going to die one day. Mommy's going to die, and you're going to die, and everybody is going to die one day. Some people die earlier, and some people die later in life. But so it feels unnatural to us that he died at 47 and not at 85. But we're all going to die one day. And just try to answer her questions as best I can, and that, God still loves us. God promises he'll take care of us. We'll see him one day. So,
Wow. And I guess it's also probably a place where you just have to ask for moment to moment grace,
yeah,
when it comes, like, God, okay, help me with this one.
yeah.
Wow. Okay. So let's take a look at some of these questions.
Okay.
Um, how do you do life? Bills. Now I don't know if how you and your husband had it separated. Was he taking care of the bills and you were doing other things? But now you're doing bills, you're doing um taking care of the housework, you're taking the kids to extracurricular activities, you're doing homework, you're doing everything. What does that look like?
I can tell you I do not do it perfectly at all. And I've had to come to terms with that. I've just had to be okay with not getting it all done. And because you're right, it's where there were two people and we had a division of labor, it's me. It's me going to all the basketball games and driving people places and taking care of the house and making every single decision. Just, it is overwhelming. I think that is probably one of the hardest things. As missing your spouse is hard enough, but I think the not being able to meet the demands on a single mom or a single parent is very difficult. So yeah, it's not like I have a routine and I get it all done and I check it all off my list. Honestly, Kia, what I have had to do from the beginning, because I kept thinking at the beginning, there was so much paperwork with all the estate stuff and
Mhm.
transferring accounts and just getting used to that. I thought, well, as soon as I get through all this, like, life will level out and we'll get to a good rhythm again. And I realized that's not really going to be the case. And I don't think it matters if you have 7 kids or if you have 2 kids, because I have a lot of friends that are single moms. I just think it's the nature of single parenting. And so I think, I've just had to say, God, help me to be okay with what I can get done and be okay with what I can't get done. I mean, there's house cleaning that I don't get done. There are things that I never get to, and then they become obsolete, and then I don't have to get to them, you know? So I do what I can. I try to do the most important things first. For me, that's taking care of my kids, and meeting their needs, and then, you know, taking care of the other things. But um, I don't get it all done perfectly. So I don't know if that answers your
No,
question.
it does. It doesn't. Actually, I want to go backwards because I always do this because my mind is like a Ferris wheel. Things are funny. But I also wanted to ask you about your circle. So you were a married woman. You guys had married people friends.
We did.
And I just wanted to know, did you feel kind of different, you know, in those circles, or how did you feel? How did you feel?
I was worried about that. And I remember just a couple weeks in after Dan passed away, hearing, you know, remembering that people had said that when there's a divorce or when there's a death, that you lose not only your spouse, but you lose your friends too. And I thought, I do not want to go through that. I can't go through that loss as well. And this is a tribute to my friends, because I haven't lost my friends. They have stayed very faithful and very much have helped our family. Um, but it doesn't look the same. Like we used to, maybe we didn't do a lot of entertaining, but we'd have friends over, we'd have another family over. I just don't do that anymore. Number one, I don't have time to do that. I don't have space in my life to do that. And also, it does feel a little awkward for me to have another couple over, or even a family. Like, who's that man going to talk to? We have a few families over. So it does look different. It definitely looks different. Um, but I haven't lost friends over it.
Sure. It's just the relationship has changed.
Definitely has changed.
Okay. Um, and you have to forgive me. So as it relates to your fears, what fears have you had to overcome, or are you presently overcoming?
Well, there are a lot of fears. And I think that's a huge thing that single parents battle. Um, you feel I think as a single mom, you feel very vulnerable, or I feel very vulnerable. There's just one of me. I mean, I remember early on, even going to the She Speaks conference where we met, leaving my kids and getting on a plane and going, I felt so vulnerable because it was just me. And what if something happened to me, you know? So there's that fear of what, you know, I'm the last one. I'm the only one for them. There's a fear of the future. I think everybody has that to some extent, but I think single moms have that because their future can be so nebulous. You know, they don't know what it looks like. It's not necessarily tied to a person, or um, so there's fear of the future. There's financial fears, because when Dan died, I was staying home with the kids, so we lost his income. That's a huge, huge practical fear. And most moms are going through that. They've lost income. You know, they've lost a significant income. Um, so there are a lot of fears, and I had to battle that. And I think for me, I just had to, it was just working out with the Lord, getting in the Word, and knowing what fears were rational and what part of it was not rational. Most of the things we fear never come to pass. So my fear of something happening to me, you know, I can't live my life like that, because I'm going to steal all the joy from today. I'm going to not live in today and not be able to parent my kids if I'm living in that fear. And the fear of the future, I just have to give that to the Lord. I mean, I don't know my future, but God knows it. And so I just have to, again, parent where I am right now and make the best decisions I can over the future. And the financial fear, again, that is a huge fear. And I can't say I've conquered that one, if I'm honest.
Yeah.
But, you know, when it rears up and I'm really feeling it on a certain day, maybe.
What, like anxiety,
Yeah,
or just
or just real fear, like what's going to happen, or are we going to be okay, and what's it going to look like in a few years for us. Um, I just have to go back to the Word and get into the promises of God and know what God's promises are for me, and that He says He is the defender of the widow and the father of the fatherless, and I have seen Him be that over and over, and that He will take care of our family. So, and when that He will lead us and guide us. So,
and Lisa, and I'm right there with you, but that just in case there are people who are watching that they might be new to faith or not even thinking about faith, they just might be single moms, and it's like, okay, I'm coming because I need some encouragement. What would you say a baby step or a practical step? Because that what you're saying is like a mature Christian who is like, okay, I know my scriptures, I'm going to the Word. But some people, it might be the fear or the reality of creditors calling you, and how am I going to make ends meet? It might be so suffocating that they just don't know how to begin to go to the Word and trust God.
this is what I've done. And it is an everyday, I will say this, as far as baby steps, it's an everyday thing. Because when I wake up in the morning, here I am 5 years out from that. And you would think I might be farther along in this process, but every morning I wake up and I have a certain amount of, like, my flesh is starting to despair or fear or wonder if I can do this, or worry about my children who are growing up without a dad and how will that affect them. And every day I have to get into the Word. And God, as I get into the Word, open the Bible, and I don't like look for a certain verse or go searching for certain scriptures. I read through certain books of the Bible. So maybe I'm in John right now, and I just read through maybe one chapter a day of John. And God speaks to me. He will speak to us on any page we're in the Bible. And so we just have to consistently be in the Word. And if we're in John 3 that day, we open it up and He will speak to us in there. And it's a supernatural thing. I mean, we can't plan it, we can't script it. It's just the way that God's Spirit works with our spirit. And so what happens for me is every morning I kind of meet with God, and I lay out all those fears and all that despair and that worry. And by the time I am done reading, God has given me His assurance,
Mhm.
His promises, a reminder of who He is, that He is sovereign, that He loves us, that He provides. And so it's like exchanging my thoughts for God's thoughts every morning. And I can't miss a morning out of the Word. Because if I miss a day out of the Word, I can feel it. I can feel that the worry is creeping up, the fears are creeping up, and I can tell I've been out of the Word. I got to get back in the Word. I think, sometimes circumstances like being a single mom or another circumstance creates in us that need, that urgency where we cannot do life without God. And on the one hand, we mourn the fact that we're single moms. We mourn whatever circumstance it was that got us here. On the other hand, that need that we have is a good thing. And God created us for that. And so we can use that bad circumstance for good by allowing it to drive us to the Word and drive us to depend on God. And you know what? He delights in that. He delights in being the God who we depend on. That's what He created us for. So it's just an everyday thing of exchanging my thoughts for God's thoughts.
That was beautifully said, Lisa. I often think about that in my own life. Just like, what if my growing up had been picture perfect the way I had wanted it to be, I probably would not have this blog, for women who grew up without their dads, but because of that dependence that was created and I still live with, it compels me not just to run to God, to the Father, but also to tell other women, look at what God is doing in my life. If you are like me, he can do the same for you. So yes, yes. I want to talk about the impact that a father has on a child, and talk about what were your thoughts, and what are some practical things that you're doing or that women can do if they're concerned about their kids having a male role model or an influence in their life?
Well, that's a great question. And we all want that for our kids when, and maybe it's an uncle or a grandfather that's willing to step in and kind of take on that role. I think for me, what I've seen is it's too much. It's overwhelming for any one person. And so I've seen different people kind of meet that need. I've had, and I've been really careful too, not to allow my kids to just go off with one person, but to do it in groups. Like it'll be maybe several of my kids with a Sunday school teacher. One of the things I did, so in my kids' lives, I would say, and this is just God's provision for us. And that is that they've had different men, like Sunday school teachers, different friends, dads step in and say, hey, let me take him to a game with me. So it's not been any one person, but a lot of people just, here and there, let me take them fishing. Let me take them to do this. There was one time my son, who's a current senior right now, just finished football, his last year of football. And he had never really played football. He had done a little bit, of flag football, but he was never in Pop Warner. We didn't grow up as a big our kids playing football. But when he was going into 9th grade, he had a dad ask him and really encourage him to go out for football. Mm-hmm. And that dad came to me, and my son's very good friends were playing football, and their dads were helping to coach, or else they were like equipment manager or helping out with a team. And so he ended up going out for football, and I knew that was not so much about playing football for him as it was making it an easy situation for him to be coached by some godly men, not just the coaches, but these other dads it just made it easy for those dads to take him along if they were taking their sons along to go get a milkshake after they were playing, or to, if they were taking their boys to do something to practice sewing, that they could take my son. So there have been times like that where I've seen opportunities and kind of God has just opened some doors for them to do something. But I'll tell you, it's for any men, that are listening to this, don't feel like you don't have to solve the problem. You don't have to be the solution to the problem. Like if you can just do one part of it, just say, hey, I'm going out to play golf. Would your son like to come with me and go hit some golf balls? It's all those little experiences from men that really doesn't equal having a dad. It doesn't replace the dad, but it gives them some manly influence.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, definitely. With sports, there's something about men, like some of them forego church and just be on the football field all day and come back rejuvenated. So
well, and and they need to talk to the way men talk to guys, and they just need to hear the way men react to situations, what they expect of boys. They just need to be around that. Mm-hmm. So
yes,
coaches and sports makes a good opportunity. Yeah,
it really does. I was thinking about upward sports because it's an opportunity for you to not just coach, but do some discipleship as well with the young men. Was
Yeah.
it something that was it something that did you ever ask men, or would you say don't do that just because of the times that we're living in?
Well, no, I think if there was somebody in your family or somebody that you were comfortable saying, "Hey, would you mind kind of taking my son under your wing?" Or, if you have an opportunity, take him out. But I've just been very careful not to have it ever be one-on-one. I just feel more comfortable with it being two of my kids and and a dad, or that dad and his son and one of my kids. I just think that eliminates another fear that single moms have.
Let me ask you, did you ever feel like, or do you feel like that there's something more that's required of you as a mom in terms of maybe preparing your daughters for a date, or telling your guys about how men should treat a lady, just like trying to cover all the bases, thinking for what Dan would have done and what you would have done? Do you have those moments?
Yes, and I have. With my boys, I read a book by Vodi Bakum called "What He Must Be," I think is the name of the book, and we just read it. We do a lot of read aloud anyway, and so I read that book, and we just went chapter by chapter. This is what you have. This is what you need to be a man of God prepared for marriage. Um, and with my daughter, um, I remember when um, we got the call. Somebody called to ask her out for the first time and kind of really not just ask her out for a date, but like, I want to exclusively be dating your daughter. I want to enter into a
Lord,
relationship. Yeah.
no, no, no.
And I remember thinking, oh, I've got to be Dan in this situation. And it felt very awkward. And I think it felt awkward for that young man too. But it was just something we needed to do. And just being very upfront with him and honest, saying, this is something that Dan would have done. This is what we discussed before he passed away. This is what we always wanted for our daughter. And just being very honest. Like, I know this feels funny that you're talking to me, but I appreciate that. And I appreciate that you respect our family enough for you to call me the mom and ask to take my daughter out.
Mm. Woo! Oh my goodness! And I'm thinking that that's really powerful that you had these types of conversations with Dan prior to your daughter entering the stage of life where she's going to be dating. Because I'm just going to say, for me, I I I don't remember having a dating discussion. I don't remember, and that's not to slight my mom. I think my mom did the best with what she knew to do. But I'm just saying, I think there were places where I was kind of like, wow, I
And
missed
I think yeah, I mean, it's with my young, Dan and I had before we had divided that up. He had the talk with the boys, with my older boys. I had the talk with my older girl. But now it's just me. So I have a choice. I can either not have those talks, or I can go ahead and have the talks and just acknowledge, just deal with it head on. And I have decided for us, these things need to be said. And I'm the only one here, and I'm going to go ahead and say them. And, you have to do it delicately, maybe with your boys. A lot of times with my boys, I'll do it when we're in the car because we're not looking face to face. There's no eye contact. It's a safe situation where we're just kind of in the car and having this conversation. But it's it, it it's where you really feel the missing. This should be done by, it would have been better if it was done by somebody else, but I'm the only one here, so I'm gonna make the best of it. I'm gonna go ahead and be the parent.
Oh my goodness. I'm thinking, oh gosh. I mean, I know that's got to be tough, but again, I guess you got to, like people say, put your big girl panties on, and you got to do it.
Or give them a book, or give them a resource. If you don't want to have the conversations, lead them to the information at least. But you've got to be the parent.
Yeah, that's That's tough. So you mentioned books. What are some practical resources for women who are parenting alone that you could offer, or that you glean from on a regular basis? I know the Bible, but
Yeah.
what else?
Well, single parenting, I don't really have a lot of resources for single parenting. So I mean, I had a lot of resources, a lot of books that we read for grief. Um, but we really, for single parenting, for me, I think I've just looked at the same parenting books that I would have looked at anyway.
Mm-hmm.
And so, for me, for grief, we read a book on heaven by Randy Alcorn. We read a book called Hind's Feet on High Places, which is an excellent book, and just talks about kind of an allegory about how to deal with hard things and pain. Another thing I've really tried to do, this is something our family does. We do a lot of reading aloud, and I have specifically picked and chosen books where there's a family that's going through hard times. I mean, The Sound of Music.
I'm sorry. What do you read aloud?
We do it. We used to do it in the evening, and now it kind of happens during the day. So the house has shifted over the last 5 years. Before everybody was at home, but over the last 5 years, I've graduated some kids. So when they were all at home, we would read in the evening. And I very purposely chose books where they were going through hard times. Maybe there wasn't a dad in the situation, but they were like classic books where they were making the best of it, and they had positive attitudes, and they were overcoming. So I just wanted them. I didn't even tell them I was doing that. I needed those books as much as they did. And it was just so helpful for us just to be reading these, get them on tape or whatever, and just be reading these good books of other, fictional accounts of stories of families that were overcoming hard things.
That's amazing. I can't read a book, and it's just two of us. I mean, oh my God, are you doing crock pot meals? How are you doing this, Lisa?
You can get them on tape. You can get them on tape and listen to them in the car.
Okay, I'm with you now. But still, but do you
Audio.
do crock pot meals?
I do crock pot meal. I do real simple cooking anymore. I really do. I cook very simply.
Help me. I'm not a single parent, but help me.
We have pizza night not one night a week. So
Okay. Let me see. We're winding down here. I think that we've covered all of my questions. I don't have anyone. If you have a question and you're watching, please shoot me an email or tweet me. You might have tweeted me and I just was not paying attention. Hold on, let me check Twitter. Okay. I don't think so. So with that said, I just want Lisa, if you could, we have a few more minutes. Can you speak from your heart to women that maybe they find themselves as a single parent and they're just hurting? They could be bitter. They could be frustrated about their situation. This is not what they expected, what they wanted in life, and quite honestly, they could be wondering, where in the world is God? And why am I here? Could you just speak to her, offer her some encouragement?
well, yes. No matter what brought you to this place, we all, none of us, just as Kia said at the very beginning, nobody expects to be, raising kids alone. Nobody expects to be a single parent and doing this alone. And there were probably painful experiences that got all of us to where we are. I think my encouragement would be to you that in that pain, to use it to drive you to the Lord. And they're not pie in the sky promises. I know for our family, you know, it has been an opportunity for the last 5 years to see God like fulfill everything that I was teaching my kids. You know, for all these years I had taught my kids about God, and God loves us, and God cares for us, and God provides for us. And I'll tell you, when the rug is pulled out from under you and your life shatters in a million pieces and you need God desperately, you get to see God actually fulfill all of that. And he does it very practically, and he does it very personally. And there are just so many times that God has, like, I know one time very early, um, I, um, I needed guidance on a parenting decision. And my kids had come to me, two of them had come to me, and they'd been offered a ski trip free to go with this Christian group skiing. And it sounded good, but honestly, I didn't know the group, and I didn't know the leadership, and I didn't know the kids who were going, and I didn't know what the situation was going to be while they were gone for a week. And I had a lot of misgivings about it. And if I could have given them an answer, I would have said no, because I didn't know the group very well. But I told them, I said, well, I'll pray about it. So I did. I prayed about it. And God very specifically in my spirit kind of said yes, not in so many words, but in my spirit was like, let them go. And so I went back to my kids and I said, yes, you can go. And sure enough, they came back from that ski trip, and those two got in the car, one girl, one boy, and they got in the car, and I was riding home with them, and they were just talking and talking, you know, unpacking from there, telling me all about the trip. And they said, Mom, this was the best trip we've ever been on. And they began to tell me about and share why the trip was so good and why it was so healing for them. Because this was probably only about 6 months after their dad had passed away. And I remember as they were talking and telling me this, just thinking about how God had said yes when I would have said no to this, and just having that assurance that he was guiding us and that he does it so practically and so personally. So I would say my encouragement would be to just cling to the Lord and watch for him and look for him. And you're going to be frustrated, and it's going to be hard. It's going to be the hardest thing you've probably ever done to raise these kids up. But Kia, you are a prime example of how a mom can do that and have such good fruit from it.
Oh,
So
that's an encouragement to my mom. Yeah.
yeah, just know that it might be the hardest thing you ever do, but you can do it. And God's promises are not pie in the sky. They are the real deal. I could give you story after story after story of how God has met our need,
Yeah.
how God has guided us, how God has answered prayer for us. I mean, very huge ways and very small ways, just over and over again. And it's an opportunity for my kids to live it. You know, I told my kids early on, I said, most kids don't have a dad who dies. This is, you know, you are going to have to walk out something that most kids never will have to walk. A lot of kids will never have to walk out. But you will have the opportunity to see God in a way that a lot of kids may never see him, because we need him so desperately. And so I would, you know, that's an encouragement to all of us, that as hard as it is, we also have an opportunity to see God work on our behalf.
Mm. You said a mouthful, such perspective, and I do want to say, my mom, you know, she'll tell you when she brought me home from the hospital, she was like, I don't know what to do with the baby. And she literally laid me on the bed and prayed and was like, God, you know, you have got to show me what to do. And I can definitely tell you, you know, things were not perfect in my household. In some ways, my mom and I, we butted heads a bunch because we're exactly like, yikes. But she taught me how to pray, and she taught me how to go to God, which is probably it is the most essential thing. I mean, that after you get rid of everything else, that's all you have.
Yeah.
That's all you have is God and prayer and the Bible. because everything else really will fall away. And when it does, you're going to need something solid. So, Lisa, that is the truth. What you said, people, if you are watching and you're just like, I don't believe it, everything she said is true. And he's not a respecter of persons. I love that. It's not like he says, oh, I'll do for Lisa Appelo, but you, single mom in Chicago on the South Side, on food stamps, I'm not going to do for you. That could not be furthest from the truth. So I hope you heard her today. I hope you heard that message, that it resonated with you, that God is the God of mankind, and that he will answer our prayers. It may not be the pie in the sky, like Lisa said, and we all have to learn that. But he will certainly come through. Lisa, I would love for you to take this time to just share with our viewers how they can connect with you. I know you have a book, and I'd love for you to promote your book on this site as well.
Okay. Well, you can connect with me. I write at a site called lisaappelo.com, lisaappelo.com. So that's where you'll usually find me. If you go there, it has all the icons, and you can find me on Instagram or Facebook or whatever. And I write a lot about single mom, my mothering. I write a lot about walking the hard places and about God's faithfulness. That's really what I write about. I love to write faith stories where God has just shown up big in a crisis, in a tragedy, or a hard situation. So, and then I do have a book. I have a Christmas book. It's a Christmas family Advent devotional. It's called Countdown to Christmas. I can't remember the tagline. It's called Countdown to Christmas. Unwrap the real Christmas story in 15 days with your family, and you can find that on Amazon. If you Google Countdown to Christmas family devotional, it'll pop up. And it's an ebook. You can get on your Kindle or put it on your tablet or whatever. But it's a 15-day devotional that I did it with my own kids, and I decided to publish it, where you kind of get any nativity scene. You don't even have to use a manger scene, but we use a manger scene. And so you kind of build your manger scene one piece at a time. You start with the creche, and then you add in the palm tree, and then you add in, different things all the way up to the kings and the shepherd, and it unwraps the story of Jesus' birth through scripture.
Oh, Lisa, you mom. You make me want to be a better mom. I'm going to do better. I am going to do better on Monday. No, tomorrow. I could do today. I could do better when I get off of this hangout.
I told my kids early on, and when you say your mom made a lot of mistakes, it wasn't perfect, I am nodding so much, because of course no mom is, you can have a mom and a dad in the home and it's never going to be perfect.
Sure.
But I have made so many mistakes. I have parented out of fear. I have made so many mistakes with my kids, trying to figure out how to parent them as a single mom. And I just said early on, we're gonna have a lot of grace with each other. We're gonna have a lot of grace to figure out, how to do this. And I'm a student all over. I feel like, when right before Dan passed away, we had just launched our oldest one out of high school, and so I thought, okay, that's like rhythm down. We're doing real well, with this kid thing, and then he passed away, and I was all by myself. So I feel like I've been a student all over again, figuring out how to single parent. So no, it is. Let me guarantee you, it is not perfect in our home all the time, at all.
But I've learned so much from you. Just such grace and the relentless pursuit of God in the midst of just crazy. Because for a lot of people, they would be like, okay, God, I'm done with you. You're horrible. But I'm not saying you're horrible, God, but I'm just saying, and what you're saying is, in those tough times, stay with God, work it out, wrestle, you know, cry out to him, lean on him, depend on him. And it's beautiful. So thank you so much, Lisa, for joining us. And as we close, I want to say thank you to you guys for watching our second live stream. I certainly hope you were blessed. It was a blessing to me just to glean from her as a mother of 7. Woo! I don't think I'm gonna have 7 kids. Well, I need to be quiet before I can be pregnant now. Oh no, I'm not. I'm not. But I don't think I am. Don't text me. Don't email me. But what I did want to say is that I hope you guys join us next month, where a dear friend of mine, Mrs. Maya Dawson, will be joining us as we talk about following God when it doesn't make sense, which we kind of talked about that today, but she's just going to have a wealth of experience and perspective to share with us. So I want you guys to know I love you. I'm praying for you. If you should need to reach out to me, you can find me on my blog all the time, www.fatherswap.com, and certainly Lisa Appelo. I know she has a wealth of resource and wisdom and just knowledge. She's truly walked the road that many of us mothers are still on. Lord Jesus, I'm still on. But you can reach her at www.lisaappelo.com, and I will put a link to her blog as well as her book on Amazon in the description section of this video. So, and if you know somebody that wanted to watch and didn't get a chance to, please share it with them. Please like it. Please follow us. And we love you. We're praying for you. And with that said, this is the end of the Google Hangout. And we love you. We're praying for you. Take care. Bye-bye.
Thanks, Kia. Bye-bye.